Look closely at your phone casing, the nitrogen fertilizer growing your food, or the silicones in your kitchen. Every single one of those items begins its life as a petrochemical. For decades, global manufacturing has run on a single, unified system to secure these raw materials. Entire supply chains across continents were built around one predictable chemical recipe. But the ongoing war in Iran has severely disrupted that system. Almost overnight, 10 to 12 million barrels of oil per day vanished from the global market. That abrupt shortage has paralyzed factory operations. From the industrial hubs of Europe to the East Asian Rim, producers suddenly cannot source the crude oil required to run their chemical plants. Because these chemical derivatives form the base materials for tens of thousands of everyday items, a localized conflict in the Middle East is now threatening to shut down the creation of modern consumer goods worldwide. Yet, while foreign manufacturers scramble to secure whatever crude they can find, American industrial complexes are operating without a hitch. The United States is insulated from this oil shortage because years ago, American producers abandoned the global standard and wrote their own recipe for synthesizing these materials. To see why American production lines are surviving while the rest of the world stalls, we need to look at how these two very different systems extract their core ingredients. The standard global pathway for chemical production starts with raw crude oil, refined into an intermediate product called naptha. Naphtha then branches out into thousands of daughter products, acting as the mandatory gateway for the rest of the world. America, however, experienced the shale revolution, unlocking massive, accessible reserves of natural gas right under the United States. There is so much of it that roughly 1/3 of all American natural gas is pulled out of the ground simply as a waste byproduct of oil drilling. Globally, the pre-war cost ratio of oil to natural gas was 5-1, but in the US, it's 2-1. American producers leverage this, cracking cheap natural gas directly into ethylene, bypassing the naphtha stage entirely to create chemical derivatives. By building a chemical industry on cheap, waste-driven extraction, the United States secured an overwhelming baseline cost advantage over every other producing nation. Which raises an obvious question. If oil is suddenly too scarce, why don't Europe and East Asia just import natural gas and copy the American model? Because naphtha crackers and gas crackers rely on entirely different hardware architectures. You cannot pipe natural gas into a multi-billion-dollar pressure vessel engineered to boil heavy crude oil. The infrastructure simply does not allow it. Switching an entire nation's energy diet requires abandoning massive refinery networks and spending billions of dollars and several years constructing new ones from scratch. Right now, foreign manufacturers are trapped. They are physically locked into an infrastructural system that demands an energy source they can no longer reliably access. The immediate result is that international production of critical chemical groups like butadiene and methanol is abruptly grinding to a halt. Meanwhile, the American system, running on its isolated diet of cheap natural gas, hasn't missed a beat. It remains completely shielded from the overseas oil shock. From an economic point of view, the United States is rapidly becoming the only functional, large-scale supplier of these raw materials left on the board. If this dynamic holds for the next 6 months to 2 years, which the current geopolitical climate suggests it will, we are looking at the shattering of petrochemical supply chains outside of North America. The widespread collapse of downstream sectors elsewhere hands the United States an insurmountable monopoly on the physical building blocks of the 21st century.